Hi, it's Hirsch Wilson, and today is January 2nd, and this is the next in the series, Living the Life, about being a volunteer firefighter in Santa Fe, New Mexico, the city different. We were paged to a single car rollover on the interstate, a typical day-to-day call, but then the dispatcher added one other thing. The car was caught in a tree. We responded with our ambulance, a fire engine, and our rescue truck. And as we got to the mile marker, yep, there it was, a little white sedan suspended in the branches of an old cottonwood right by the interstate. We figured that the driver had flown off the interstate at high speed and hit that tree exactly right to be caught in the V. The car looked like it was securely stuck. But on the other hand, it was a car in a tree, not a kind of our everyday call. For a few minutes, we stood around to try and formulate a plan. And then we looked up and there was a hand waving at us from the driver's window. Well, two of us, Jody, an experienced EMT, and myself, volunteered to climb up the tree and do an assessment. Jody got to the window and found an approximately 25-year-old male who was conscious and breathing and talking to us without any apparent injuries. So naturally, Jody asked, "What happened?" And the man replied, "I just hit myself with a bunch of heroin, and now I think I took too much and I'm going to overdose. So I thought I'd drive myself to the hospital just to make sure." Then his eyes rolled back in his head, and just before he lost consciousness, he looked at Jody and said, "Are you an angel?" And then he passed out. So a guy driving high speed on the interstate on heroin, just about to OD, and he flies off the road into a tree. That's the situation we had. Jody yelled down to our captain what was going on. And then we got into a little debate. Should we treat the overdose first in the car, or should we bring the patient down to the ground and then treat the overdose? Finally, we decided to go with the overdose. And a syringe of Narcan was prepared. Now, Narcan is the drug that reverses a heroin or an opiate overdose. The syringe was prepared and handed up to Jody, and she injected the first dose of Narcan. While she was doing that, and we were waiting to see what happened to the patient, the rest of us tried to figure out how we were going to extricate him from the car. We knew that this was not going to be a textbook extrication. The patient was still unresponsive. We managed to open the door and get a C-collar around his neck. And fortunately, he was only about 150 pounds or so, so I was thanking the heavens that he wasn't a really heavy guy. It took us a few more minutes to get organized to get him out of the tree. So while we were waiting, Jody decided to give him another dose of Narcan. Now this can be tricky because sometimes patients respond to Narcan by vomiting or throwing up. They can get really agitated, or they can get really pissed that you just ruined their high. We formed a line up the tree and handed our patient down carefully to the ground and put him on a gurney. Jody came down and she began a more thorough assessment of the patient because he had been in a car accident while we strapped him into the gurney. Then our patient woke up and he looked around, figured out what was happening, and saw Jody. In a reversal, he said, "You bitch, you ruined my high. I was so wasted." Then he glanced up the tree and said, "What's my car doing in a tree? How'd this happen?" As we finished strapping him in and loaded him into the ambulance, he just let out with another stream of obscenities directed at Jody for ruining his high. She took it very, very well. We closed the doors to the ambulance and he went off to the hospital. Other than the fact that we needed to practice getting patients out of trees, there's no real moral to this story. This was just another day being a volunteer firefighter. People do weird things. A car stuck in a tree, a crossbow arrow through the neck, a group of cyclists wearing superhero capes are struck by a car. It goes on and on and on every day. The first rule of the Firefighter Universe is stuff happens. And of course, that Firefighter Universe is our universe. So the best way to respond to that universe is to be brave, to be kind, and to fight fires.